Where's everybody at? Where's everybody? Hey, where are they?
When it comes to next level movement in virtual reality, you can always count on Joyway to deliver the highest product of that. From their previous games, they always tend to have great stuff, Stack and Red Flowers, Stride, and giving us those updates within Stride. But there's one thing that they're always lacking that a lot of people contemplated on Joyway, and it was being asked a lot in the VR community because a lot of this stuff felt arcadey. There's a lot of movement within what Joyway does. They have gorilla tag aspects on steroids in terms of pumping your arms, the way you gravitate, immersion, and how you utilize weapons and slow-mo. So much stuff going on. Now, Joyway, what they did great was always movement, but one thing, like what I said, that seemed to be lackluster a little bit, in which the community asked for, was an actual legitimate story mode. Stride Fates has come along, and it's something that we were definitely fortunate to be able to stand into, get in, hop in, enjoy the experience. It is great. It is Stride on steroids. It is Stride Fates, but this is their version of what they call, you know, a campaign. And there's a lot of great things, but there's also some actual shortcomings in this game. Now, the great things are always going to be the movement, the parkour essential. It's the parkour champion, this game. This game was meant to be released as a parkour game, type of like rogue agent in an essence, but then you also have somewhat of a team allies. And the campaign with Stride Fates, it's great. It's a solid game. It's something that you can always look into to enjoy. Now, without obviously spoiling any type of the campaign, I would say that in terms of climbing, everything, and reloading, you can keep it real arcadey. The way you reload, you can just kind of like look down, and it does it. You kind of just put your gun down a little bit, and it actually reloads. Now, things that are great about it, like what I said, the climbing, you can run off walls, and this is all like actual signatures. So if you're familiar with any Joyway games, they bring everything back in here. One thing I really love about this game is just, as far as my favorite thing, right? Like what I said, man, the music in here is amazing. I feel like I'm in a 90s movie, like back in Mortal Kombat, the way they play this music. When you get into the action scenes, they made it seem like it's 90s. Like, I don't know, it's just so cool. It's somebody that was born in the 90s, hashtag old man. And they make this seem like I'm back in the Matrix movie, or I'm back like in the early 2000 Matrix, and then 90s like Mortal Kombat movies. Just everything that was going on, like all the fighting games that you used to play. They play that type of like techno house music. So it feels really cool to hear that stuff when you're getting into action. It feels like I'm in the Matrix, especially when you hit their slow-mo features. That's probably one of my best things about this game, is their slow-mo features. It is so cool. You can get way more accurate with it. Now, it tends to get a little confusing at times to like loot and switching out your gun. Now you can get like a shotgun, your handguns, a katana, you can get all this stuff. So sometimes I always like would drop my knife a lot, but that's just a skill issue with me. That's nothing on Joyway's end. Sometimes it doesn't really render as fast as I would want it to be, maybe because, I don't know, it's just, again, it could be me, it could be the game just not connecting, it could be me standing out of calibration, or it could just be just my connectivity in all aspects. Y'all gotta let me know how y'all feel about that. So sometimes I wouldn't render as much. Sometimes it's harder to like really like kind of put it on the holster, like the gun, and hold it on my hip. You gotta put it real low on your hip. So make sure your calibration is really good in this game. But it is fully immersed. The fight scenes are okay. It can get repetitive at times. It is very, very violent looking. If you're very, very fond of Bone Lab and Blade and Sorcery, you're definitely gonna get your bloody aspects going. This game gets completely bloody, a lot of violence. Like I said, you use the knife, you can put it in certain aspects that creates a lot of violence. So it is a very gory game. Like you will see the visuals of the blood, the continuity also, and the immersion, which people like about this stuff, right? That's why people like Blade and Sorcery, the physics games, and Bone Lab and Battle Talent and all that, because you can really hang on to these people's bodies, stay immersed, and really get all in the face. It just feels far more realistic. You can throw the bodies off like the building. So you get yourself in this game. I'm telling you, like there's no aspect about it right now. You are really jumping in, you're going in. There's a lot of things you can do. You grab bodies, like I was using bodies as like shields as I'm getting into fights. It was just hilarious. It is stupid, dumb fun. But there is some criticizing aspects in the story. With the story, it's a very bland story. You can tell that they still want to focus on movement. Now they did do this. Oh yeah, I didn't mention also that Dead Hook also is also a great movement game. Again, Joyway excels at this. There's no reasoning why, like, they set the tone on what like VR active movement should be. It's basically becomes a fitness game. You will sweat a lot in this game. You get very active with pumping, your running and jumping and climbing and all this stuff. Now, what it is a very generic story. The emotion is not there in the voice acting, so it's really hard to really invest in the characters. I think that's the only thing that I really felt at top of the line. If I can go to one of my gripes for sure, is that the story still didn't feel like a story. It just felt like kind of just the original Stride on steroids. It wasn't too in depth. Obviously, they're not going to be known for that. All their games have never been known for having this type of campaign, in-depth campaign, that is, right? And so it was great. I still feel like it was great. Again, like your assistant, your ally, I forgot her name, is like Elizabeth or something, and she is an NPC. She's like kind of this you know, she's actually digital, right? She's a digital person who's also an NPC, who's also like an AI, but she sounds too much like an AI, and the voice acting is just, the emotion's not in there. I'd be in the middle of like a heavy battle, and the conversations would be like way too casual. And like they would just be like kind of whispering and talking like, oh yeah, I gotta go over here. Okay, I'm just like, wait, hold on. I'm in the middle of like stabbing people and shooting people. And he's just like, oh, I gotta go over here to here and open this elevator. And so it was just real, like the tone wasn't, it didn't sound as cool as I wanted it to sound, because when you're in VR, you want to feel heavily invested, especially with story modes, which is why there's not a lot of succeeding story modes in virtual reality, because it's so hard to take it to that level, and especially all the game time, the playing time, because I mean on the Quest 3, Quest 2 only lasts like 2 hours. So when you're at a standalone quest, I know you're only limited with a certain amount of time to try to win the buyer over, the consumer, us as players. And it just didn't work out. It really, there's a lot of fluff in between at times. It kind of slows down too much. They do have some puzzling nature to it, which is also cool. Again, the replayability doesn't seem too much unless you're going to be doing like challenges as you did prior to like the original Stride game. But again, make no mistake, it is a great game. I just feel like the campaign wasn't in depth. It's not something where you'll look at like The Walking Dead or Resident Evil 4. Obviously, Resident Evil 4 was more of a flat screen game before, but like to look at The Walking Dead and games that just can really hold off to that. Maybe Assassin's Creed will probably be able to deliver something like that when that comes out. We don't know. But games like this usually tend to just stay like this. Like Bone Lab, kind of, I guess, the Bone Lab campaign, if you can say. I mean, obviously, everyone's going to just compare that to Boneworks. But Bone Lab was a decent story to have this type of gameplay and fighting and physics and everything like that. So, yeah, the story, it was just too bland. I feel like the emotion wasn't there in the campaign, which kind of sucks, and that kind of makes it a huge downfall, because that's theoretically was their main mission, was to make an actual campaign game. Like this is head out and sought out to be a campaign, and so I didn't feel like it was a campaign. Now it was really fun and it was cool to have different themes, different stages, different correlations, different scenarios to an extent, right? Like what I said, a lot of it can be repetitive at times, but it was just cool to have it portrayed as a campaign for the first time. The music's fun, the immersion's there, the movement's all there. It's all capitalized. It's fun to execute all that. Get into massive battles. Even if you play on normal, like this game is very hard. If you play it on normal, even if you play it on easy, they can still stack up against you. Like I was like, oh dang, this is actually pretty hard. So the AI, the AI characters, like what you're playing against, like computer, the NPCs, like it gets pretty difficult. It gets pretty difficult, man. So I give them props for that. At least it's not like easy to beat. Like you get in some challenges like playing these people. But I just felt like the story, what they were aiming for, is just not there. But again, Joyway does what Joyway does amazing, which is to the point, not too much fluff. I think this was more like out of the ordinary, obviously, and it was something that they executed on what they always do well. It's just they kind of fell a little short, in my opinion, in giving us an in-depth story. But man, does this game play fun. It does everything. They always take the VR movement to higher levels, and I love it. I'm always blown away by what they do. But maybe a campaign, they just had to really just work on it. And this is like a smaller step forward for them to work more on campaign. And I know a lot of people on Twitter really say that a lot about Joyway also, that they need to work on just getting like further into that campaign. All in all, I did love this game. It's a very great game. Again, if you want to get active and feel really much like you're in VR, Joyway, any type of titles that they do release, is always gonna be like the sure way to go again. But if you're looking for a campaign, this wouldn't be the option. I would say most likely look for the Stride prior, before this, the actual prequel to this. I think that would be dope. But for this to be a fully separate game, maybe could have looked at it more as a patch or update maybe. But full campaign, I don't know. We'll try and see a replay. Maybe we can give some thoughts more later on a second run. But that was kind of like my first run thoughts. As a campaign, it does fall short. But what Joyway does well, through the roof. Movement, like hook shots and trick shots and physics and slow motion and how you interact with enemies and just all the gore, the violence, all that stuff is all there, which everybody usually loves about VR because that's how they feel like into the fighting scenes, you know what I mean? So, and the music is top notch. Y'all let me know what's up. Have you played this game? Hit me up, man. Peace.